Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Morning Blast. It is Wednesday, the 26th of November, also known if you're in the UK as Shipmas Day on account of the budget. You join myself and Mr. Michael Brown for the Morning Blast, where, as usual, we give a review of what happened yesterday in markets and news, a preview of what to look forward to today in terms of economic data and what we expect to be said during the day. A little bit of a laugh, a little bit of a rant at random things, and especially today. You know the score by now, but before we crack on, I'll get the legals out of the way. Nothing discussed on this podcast is trading investment advice. Nothing informed any kind of endorsement by PIQ. Myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed Mr. Michael Brown. Michael, how are you on this wonderful, lovely, kind of crisp day in London?
Indeed, a very good morning to you, Ryan. Good morning, everyone. Happy doomsday to our UK listeners. And I must admit, my day is already off to a terrible start because I've just walked into a door and absolutely fucked up my knee, which was already in a pretty bad way beforehand. So if anyone spots a man in a blue gilet hobbling around the city this afternoon, it's not because I'm pissed. It's just because I've hurt my leg.
Well, you might be pissed as well. It's not ruled that out. I'm assuming it was a glass door, not you just walking into a solid oak door.
It was a wooden door. Actually.
Oh my days!
Yeah, makes it worse.
Which tees us up nicely to talk about the budget, because obviously our dear friend Clive Lambert from Futures Text isn't around for the next few days. There's nothing from him. He's dead to us.
But, who's Clive exactly?
Yeah, who is Clive? But yeah, so go on. Where are we standing with the budget?
Yeah, well, we may as well start with that this morning, and then we will resume our normal service after that. Of course, the Chancellor delivering the budget today at 12:30 London time, coming right after Prime Minister's questions. Finally, we can put to an end what has been 12 weeks of leaks, of rumour, trial balloons, and even an emergency press conference during that period. Sorry?
But leaks are bad.
Oh, yeah, apparently the ministers have been, quote, read the riot act about leaks this morning, but I mean, they're still going to do it anyway, so don't know what the point of that is. In any case, to frame what is going to be happening later on is, of course, since the spring statement around 6 months ago, the Chancellor's £9 billion worth of headroom that she left herself against the fiscal rules has been entirely eroded and then some. And that comes not only as a result of the government's failure to reform welfare spending in the summer, but also amid the OBR likely downgrading their growth projections for the UK economy and also likely revising down in a substantial manner their projections for trend productivity here in the UK. Most estimates as a result put the quote-unquote black hole at around £20 billion, although Chancellor Rachel Reeves has said that she wants to build greater fiscal headroom than she was left with last time out, hopefully in a sign that she might have learnt her lesson and that in having a bigger buffer, she may not have to come back for more tax hikes this time next year, if, of course, she is still in a job. In terms of the measures that Rachel Reeves will use to obtain that greater degree of fiscal headroom, almost all of the tightening or consolidation that we're going to see today is going to come in the form of tax hikes, with the government a combination of unwilling and unable to significantly rein in public spending.
TLDR, the taxpayers are going to be poorer and the country's going to be no better off.
Absolutely that. Absolutely spot on. It had looked for a while, and I alluded to this earlier on with that emergency press conference, it had looked as if we were going to be getting just one big tax measure and that was going to be an increase in the basic and higher rates of income tax, and that would effectively fill the black hole in one fell swoop. However, the government since U-turned on that, ostensibly due to better than expected OBR forecasts, but in reality because it would be a manifesto breach that would go down terribly with basically every single person in the country. As a result, it seems like the government, or the Treasury, I should say, are going to be taking what's termed a smorgasbord approach to tax increases. Effectively, what that means is that they will be increasing a number, potentially more than a dozen, according to reporting in the Times overnight, a number of smaller tax hikes, which together they will hope will add up to somewhere between 20 and 30 billion in order to balance the proverbial books. Of course, we have had a lot of leaks in terms of what the government may or may not be doing. Some of the more concrete measures that are almost certain to be announced later on today included an extension of the freeze on income tax thresholds out to 2030 from the current 2028, changes to salary sacrifice schemes whereby payments above a certain cap, likely £2,000, are going to be subject to both employee and employer national insurance contributions. There's also likely to be changes to property taxes, both in the form of revaluing the top 3 council tax bands, as well as imposing a council tax surcharge on the most expensive of properties, likely those worth more than £2 million. That, of course, is being dubbed a mansion tax. There is also various other smaller measures, including a likely pay per mile scheme for electric vehicles, as well as changes to gambling taxes, cycle to work schemes, and also yesterday we had reports via Bloomberg that the government are also looking at introducing a tourist tax, as well as increasing the revenue that they're raising from sugar taxes. As you can see, a lot of smaller measures. The government obviously... Oh, go on.
Our very good friend Helen Thomas, Blonde Bunny on Twitter. If you're going to follow anyone today, follow her.
Yeah, 100%.
Blonde at Market Blondes. Helen's a good friend, so I'm slightly biased, but she is fucking awesome at cutting through all of like this kind of thing, all this kind of budgets and political nonsense and what it refers to markets and what the real effect is. And I raise her name not just because you should be following our data like today, but also yesterday, obviously, you heard what Michael kind of rattled off for, there's going to be a quiz at the end for all of, if you're paying attention, all these little taxes. And I think she was spot on yesterday. And I'll quote her full message. And she said, and this, in a nutshell, is what we'll get from the Smorgasbord, an overly engineered attempt to make a spreadsheet based on uncertain assumptions add up, raising unintended consequences both politically and economically. And I think she has worded that perfectly, and that's exactly what we've got.
Yes.
It's almost like now I'd almost preferred she just raised the income tax.
Yeah, and actually, I'm with you on that. I was having this conversation with our mutual friend Adam Linton yesterday, and he thought I would lost the plot. But I agree. I think at this point, well, I probably have. But I'm with you. It's a case of the hiking income tax, which, to be clear, is not going to happen now. It would just be the least bad of all the very bad options that are on the table. Whereas what we're going up through here, as Helen rightly and very articulately put there, is the risk now is either one, the measures that are outlined do not raise anywhere near the revenue that they are supposed to on paper, according to how the OBR score all of this. And the second is that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, however many of them, go down so terribly that the Chancellor's forced to do a U-turn. You think back to 2012 when we had the whole issue with the pasty tax with George Osborne and that omnishambles budget. When you try to change too many things in one go, something will inevitably slip through the net. What does slip through the net is inevitably what the newspapers and the media and the general public will latch onto and go, this is not fair, we are up in arms about it, and force a change in direction. And then you're back to square one again.
I'll tell you what, it's like, it's never a great sign when you've got the Chancellor going around to the big banks around in the City of London saying, after I've done the budget, can you please praise it for me?
Yeah.
It's basically what she's gone and done at the start of the week. Yeah, I'm very, very nervous at this point. There's still some people claiming, oh, no, do you know what? It won't be as bad as what we've been made out to think. I'll give you a clue. My base case is it's going to be worse than what we've been made out to think. Because also, as with all these things, every new tax or every new page of the tax book that you put in just makes more loopholes, makes it harder for people to navigate taxation anyway. The only people winning are tax accountants.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few other things just to mention on the budget before we sort of move on. The first is that long list of tax hikes that I just rattled off and we'll quiz you on in a moment. My back of the envelope maths, that gets you to about 20 billion. Now, earlier on, we were talking about the need for 30 billion.
Wait. It gets us to about 20 billion if they all went into effect tomorrow.
Actually, I was going to come on to that as well.
The pay per mile for EVs doesn't come, it's scheduled to come in 3 years' time. They ain't got a fucking clue how to implement it.
Yeah, and I think that hold that thought because I'm going to come on to that in a moment. But yeah, so I am genuinely concerned whether there may be some sort of sting in the tail here in terms of another couple of taxes that haven't been trailed in the media, because simply on paper that does not add up at the moment. The other thing to bear in mind is there is obviously going to be some spending measures in the budget. Before you get excited, none of this is going to economic growth. The government are looking to scrap the two-child benefit cap. That will cost about 3 billion quid.
Which is ridiculous.
It's absolutely mental.
Sorry, on this, I don't mean to come across as that guy, but I am that guy. I mean, genuinely, if you're on benefits and you're receiving money anyway, you obviously you're at home, you ain't got nothing better to do. Buy a fucking Game Boy or something like that. Stop shagging your wife because you can't afford kids. Go down the Weatherspoons, take up drinking because you got to stop shagging. And it's taxpayers like me. And I tried to tell the taxpayer I died saving my family from a burning aircraft carrier. It didn't work. But people like me and you are footing the bill for shaggers. That's what it comes down to.
That is basically what it comes down to. Not quite as eloquently put as Ellen Thomas at but nearly there.
I've got lowbrow covered. She's got highbrow covered.
The other bits of spending that are likely to come, and of course there may be some rabbits in the hat if we can afford either a rabbit or a hat this year, is, very good. The 5p freeze in fuel duty, that's going to be extended for another year. That costs about 3 billion quid. You've also got the failure to cut welfare spending from the summer to add on to these figures, which is between 3 and 5 yards, depending on how you do the maths. Other bits and bobs in the budget, the government has also already pre-announced, as they've pre-announced everything, that they are going to increase the national minimum wage by 4.1% from April 2026. The minimum wage for those between 18 and 20 years old, that's going to go up by something stupid like 8%. This is ridiculous. I'm not against people being paid more, let me be very, very clear, but youth unemployment in the UK is running north of 15%. If you then force companies to pay effectively 10% more in terms of salary for those young workers, well, simply you're just pricing those people out of a job and you're going to make unemployment even worse. And actually, even the Resolution Foundation are against such a substantial increase. And when they're against a policy, it must be an absolutely terrible idea. In summary, then, just in terms of all of those measures that we've just discussed, we are looking at significant tax hikes to fund significant additional public spending. Frankly, as Ryan said, it's basically tax workers give it to those who don't work, tax businesses give it to those who are involved in a business.
I'm not,
Sorry,
go on.
Well, I was going to say the going back to your thought earlier on, the issue, and where I do have a sort of worrying, nagging feeling that all of this could fall apart relatively quickly, is that the spending commitments are what you would term front-loaded, i.e. they happen pretty much now or within the next 6 months.
The revenue
tax commitments are backloaded. So that is, they will start, well, in the case of the income tax thresholds in 2028, council tax is going to take a year or two to revalue everything. That means that you run the real risk of, although the fiscal rules are met on paper, in reality, they're not, because by the time we get to 2028, we'll probably have gone through one, if not two more governments, and all of the tax changes are then basically on the chopping block and could be got rid of. So there is the real potential for that split in terms of when the revenue raising and spending are to be delivered. There's the real potential, I think, for everything to fall down on that front.
Absolutely. I think, again, the bottom line is, the one thing that needs to be done is cutting spending, and they're actually spending more. It's ridiculous. But if Rachel Reeves happens to be listening, or Torsten Bell happens to be listening, good morning. Just elaborating on my point I was thinking of just now, I've got a fantastic idea. Keep the two-child policy in place and spend a small amount, say a couple $100 million, to do a bring back fingering campaign. That'll get rid of all of our problems. There'll be no more, they'll focus on things that don't make more children.
Yes.
I don't know quite who I've got to pitch this to, but it's a working theory.
But I think it could need some work, but
They do say no idea is a bad idea.
That one might be. Just lastly on the budget, while we get back to something resembling normal service, I think for financial markets, if you are involved in markets in any way, shape or form today, it could be quite a choppy day. I think there's probably three important questions for financial markets today. The first will be, basically do the books balance. And what I mean by that is not on paper in terms of what the OBR say, but in reality. You know, for example, government promising, say, 5 yards worth of spending cuts in 3 years' time in an election year. Well, yeah, it's going to make the spreadsheet balance, but it's not actually credible. And we all know you're not going to deliver it. So you do need to do a bit of digging on that front. The second is what the gilt remit is going to be for the year ahead in terms of how much the government are planning to borrow. Consensus currently sees that at about 270 billion. That would be down from about 300 billion this year. And of course, there's also questions as to how the DMO are going to split that across the curve. And then the other key question or consideration for market participants, it's a longer run one, of course, is what does the fallout from all of this look like? There's three sort of key audiences that Rachel Reeves is trying to please here. The first, of course, being Labour MPs, the second being financial markets, and the third being the electorate at large. Firstly, are any of them actually going to be pleased by this? Probably not. Are any of them unhappy enough to throw a proper tantrum, either in terms of gilts or in terms of Labour MPs? Or do we end up in a situation where Starmer and Reeve just kind of muddle through until May when we have the local elections, and that's the next moment of political vulnerability? But I think that's probably everything in terms of the budget. It's going to be another episode of this government by spreadsheet that we've got very, very used to, because frankly, the Treasury have not only lost all credibility, but they've lost all control as well in terms of the narrative and in terms of shaping what they're doing. And I think the big takeaway for me from what's been trailed in the media is that there is absolutely nothing in all of what we've just discussed over the last 15 minutes or so that actually significantly reduces the risk of either Reeves or her replacement coming back this time next year to do it all over again. And I think that should worry everyone very, very significantly indeed.
Indeed that, my good friend. Well, look, I know we've spent quite a bit of time on the UK budget today, but it is budget day, so what to expect? I will rattle off just a few very choice headlines from the overnight news roundup. As always, it's far better for you to subscribe to our Substack, because then you get it sent directly to your inbox. Also follow our good friend Zach Eisman, who puts this all together on Twitter. But let me just rattle through just a couple, and then Michael can tee us up for what we've got later on today that's not budget related. Starting off in kind of macro news, etc. The S&P 500 forecast is to rise 12% by the end of next year, 2026. The benchmark S&P 500 is forecast to rise about 12% between now and the end of the year, propelled by a still healthy economy, strength in technology-related companies, and accommodative Federal Reserve. That's according to a Reuters poll of equity strategists. US-Taiwan semiconductor deal negotiations. The Trump administration are negotiating a deal that could commit Taiwan to fresh investment and training of US workers in semiconductor manufacturing and other advanced industries. China, they've overtaken the US in the global market for quote, open artificial intelligence models, gaining a crucial edge over how powerful technology is used around the world. That's according to a study by MIT and Hugging Face, citing data on download. A Hugging Face is some kind of like coders kind of like site, isn't it, or something like that? I don't really know.
Don't ask me. I'm not going to know that
one. They bought at least 10 cargoes of US soybeans worth around $300 million in contracts signed since Tuesday, a day after presidents of both countries spoke on the phone. US President Trump had said he urged China's president to increase the speed and size of agricultural purchases, and said Beijing had, quote, more or less agreed to do so. There we go. For the first time since 2022, Chinese onshore stocks and government debt are moving independently, losing their inverse relationship. I'm not going to mention budget day. We've covered that. The Kremlin, they've confirmed Wednesday that US envoy Steve Witkoff will visit Moscow next week to meet with President Vladimir Putin as Washington presses negotiations on a plan to end the conflict in Ukraine. The White House is defending Witkoff over a repeatedly leaked conversation in which he told a Russian official that praising President Trump would help smooth over a call with Putin regarding the war in Ukraine. So basically, something that Trump and Rachel Reeves have in common, they're trying to force people to praise them. What else have we got? OpenAI projects. They projected about 8.5% of its weekly active users, or 220 million people will pay for a Plus plan in 5 years' time. The company forecasts that chatbot subscriptions will generate about $270 billion in revenue through 2030, including about $87 billion in 2030 alone. OpenAI plans to increase the paying users by making enterprise-level deals with companies as more workers start using ChatGPT on their own. To what we got was Meta in talks to use Google AI chips. This was big news yesterday. Meta Platforms is in talks to use chips made by Google in artificial intelligence efforts, a step towards diversifying away from resilience on NVIDIA. The deal could be worth billions of dollars, but the talks are continuing and may not result in anything. So let's temper those expectations. TSM, actually, we've done a bit too much on chips already. You can read the full report yourself. Robinhood launches a predictions market exchange to the surprise of absolutely no one. This is with market maker Susquehanna International to expand its array of prediction contracts tied to sports, elections, and other events. A Wall Street Journal profile notes that the Robinhood CEO Vlad Tenev has shifted the company's focus to aggressive active traders, with 78% of Robinhood's transaction-based revenue in the most recent quarter coming from crypto and options trading. Finally, for me, before I do hand back, we got SoftBank. They raised $3.2 billion, completes the Ampere acquisition. This is from retail investors predominantly at a coupon of 3.98%, the highest on a yen-denominated senior bond from the company in more than 15 years. And if you want to read any more, go and read it yourself on the Substack, because we're a busy day today. But Michael, go on. What else have we got to look forward to?
Cool, good stuff. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I would strongly recommend going and reading that, because there is obviously a hell of a lot going on today. But naturally, we're going to focus on the budget, because we are sat here in the City of London and we are all going to be fucked by it. In terms of other bits and bobs that are going on today, though, we do have quite a lot of data releases out of the United States. At 1:30 this afternoon, so while Rachel Reeves will be speaking in the Commons, we are due to get the weekly US jobless claims numbers. Initial claims seen having risen to 225,000. Up from a prior 220 in the week to the 22nd of November. Continuing claims, meanwhile, they are seen falling to 1.964 million, down from a prior 1.974 million. And do note that the continuing claims print, that does pertain to the November non-farm payroll survey. That November jobs report is due on the 16th of December, for those who haven't yet updated their diaries. In terms of other US releases today, we get the latest durable goods orders data. That's also out at 1:30, with orders seen having risen by 0.5% in September, a slowdown from the 2.9% that we saw in October. While we also get the latest M&I Chicago PMI stats out of the US today. That data due at 2:45 London time, although the data is released 3 minutes early for M&I subscribers, and that index is expected at 43.8, which will be unchanged from the prior. In terms of other focuses today, we do have a 7-year note auction in the United States, $44 billion worth being sold off. We are also due to get the release of the Fed's beige book of anecdotal economic evidence. Of course, money markets pricing a December cut as about an 85% chance at this moment in time. And of course, the Fed's blackout period does begin at the end of the week. And on the subject of central bank speakers, we're not due to hear from anyone from the Fed today, but do just keep an eye out for any TV interviews. Having said that, we are due to hear from the ECB's Lagarde, Lane, Vujicic and Muller throughout the day ahead. And also do just note that today is, of course, the last proper trading day of the week. The US will be away celebrating Thanksgiving and eating turkey tomorrow. And by and large, everyone in the States will be away on Friday as well. So usual caveats around liquidity and trading volumes apply on that front. And do also bear in mind, as we've discussed quite a lot on the show in recent weeks, for a few participants, if not many participants, it could actually be the last proper trading day of the year as well, with there being very significant questions as to who actually comes back after Thanksgiving. And if you do, what size you're actually trading in. So do just bear that in mind, not just in terms of market moves today, but also over the next 3 or 4 weeks as we move towards actual year end around Christmas time. But that's pretty much all from me for the time being. And yeah, can't wait to cry over the budget tomorrow.
I wonder if they'll put it on the big TV in some of the pubs on in the city.
They probably would, to be honest.
Be a bad idea, to be fair.
I mean, do you know what? I think a stiff drunk might be the only way to get through it.
Oh, we can perch up in the Cross Keys and do like a live show. But anyway, maybe for next year.
I'll tell you what, if you sat in the Cross Keys at lunchtime, my office is over the road and you will hear me swearing from wherever you are in that.
Brilliant. Well,
It's already been suggested that I should be moved into a meeting room today for other people's safety.
Maybe a padded room, given how you've been walking into doors.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, actually, yeah.
Well, look, to our fellow Brits, we wish you good luck. We all need it.
Godspeed.
Godspeed. It's been a trip. It's been emotional. Yeah, hopefully we're here tomorrow. And if we are, we look forward to listen. Well, hopefully you can look forward to listening to us as we cry into our Rice Krispies or whatever it's breathing.
But anyway, we can afford by then.
Yeah, gruel. Michael, thank you as always. Listeners, thank you as always. Whatever you're doing today, stay safe, keep it tight, and we will see you all tomorrow. Much